I wasn't supposed to notice her like that. Not while my friend was upstairs, music spilling faintly from his room, and I was just waiting in the living room like any guest should. But there she was, his mother, leaning against the arm of the couch as if the whole house bent around her presence. She didn't do much, really. Just crossed one leg over the other, her hands smoothing the hem of her cardigan, her gaze sliding toward me for a second too long before drifting back to the muted television. But that was enough. It was impossible not to feel it, her calmness pressing against the restless rhythm in my chest. "Do you want some water?" she asked, finally. Her voice was steady, but softer than I remembered. I nodded, words sticking, and followed her into the kitchen. The silence there was different, denser. The hum of the refrigerator filled the air, but every move she made, the clink of glass, the small bend forward to reach the cupboard, drew me closer without either of us stepping in. I told myself to stop staring, but then her sleeve brushed my arm as she handed me the glass. Just fabric, just a touch, but my grip tightened, almost embarrassed by how much it registered. "Thanks," I managed. Her lips curved, not a smile exactly, more like she'd heard something unspoken. She looked at me fully then, and for a moment I forgot to drink. The kitchen light caught the faint lines near her eyes, the kind that come from years of laughing, or maybe holding back laughter. Something about that made her look alive in a way girls my age never did. I leaned against the counter, pretending I had something to say, though nothing came out. She filled the space instead, asking where I was working now, how classes were going. Normal questions, but the way she listened made me stumble. She tilted her head slightly, arms folded, like she was weighing my answers against something I couldn't see. At one point, she reached across the counter for the fruit bowl, her wrist brushing mine again. Neither of us moved back right away. The air between us seemed to thicken, our bodies still angled closer than they needed to be. "You're quieter than your friend," she said after a beat. "Maybe I just listen more," I said, trying to make it sound casual. Her eyes stayed on me a second longer than the words deserved. There was the faintest laugh, almost private, like she was amused by something she wouldn't explain. I should have stepped away. I should have said something safe. Instead, I found myself asking, "Do you ever get tired of the silence here?" Her fingers paused on the counter, tracing the rim of a ceramic bowl. The question seemed to land deeper than I intended. She looked past me, then back, her mouth parting as if she might answer, then stopping. The house creaked above us, his footsteps, or maybe just the wood shifting, and suddenly the spell snapped. She straightened, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear, the distance sliding back into place. But when she set the bowl down, her hand lingered on the counter, inches from mine, close enough that all I had to do was move slightly. Neither of us did. And that was when the floorboards upstairs groaned louder, closer this time. Her eyes flicked up toward the ceiling, then back at me, and the silence between us turned sharper, suspended, waiting to break. The footsteps upstairs faded again, muffled behind the beat of his music. She exhaled slowly, almost as if she'd been holding her breath until the sound passed. I wondered if she realized I was watching her more closely now, watching the way her shoulders relaxed, the way she smoothed her hair even though nothing was out of place. I set the glass down, trying to break the tension, but my words betrayed me. "You ever wish things were different?" Her eyes flicked to mine, guarded. "Different how?" I shrugged, though I knew exactly what I meant. I didn't dare say it. She leaned against the counter, folding her arms. "When you're my age, that question comes with a list." She gave a small, self-conscious laugh. "Sometimes I wonder if I should have stayed married. Or maybe left sooner. You start playing what if with yourself more than you'd like." It was the first time she'd mentioned him, her ex. I'd heard things from my friend, half-grumbled remarks about his dad, but never from her. The way she said it now carried a weight I wasn't used to hearing from her. I wanted to ask more, but she was already retreating into composure. "Anyway," she said, brushing it off, "you don't need to hear about that." But I did want to hear. I found myself leaning in a little, lowering my voice without meaning to. "You seem lonely sometimes." Her lips parted, and she froze just enough to give her away before she masked it with a smile. She reached for my shoulder in that motherly, casual way, except it wasn't casual. Her fingers rested there a moment longer than necessary, warm even through the thin fabric of my shirt. My pulse kicked, and I prayed it didn't show. She pulled her hand back too quickly, almost guilty, and busied herself with rearranging things on the counter that didn't need rearranging. "You noticed too much," she said, almost under her breath. Maybe she was right. I noticed the faint citrus of her perfume, the way her voice softened when she wasn't on guard, the quiet curve of her collarbone under the fall of her sweater. Every detail felt like something I shouldn't be looking at, and yet I couldn't stop. I shifted in place, trying to cover my own unease. "It's hard not to," I admitted. Her gaze snapped back to mine then, sharp and searching, like she needed to decide whether I meant it the way it sounded. The silence between us stretched, heavy with everything unsaid. The television in the living room carried a low murmur. The house was otherwise still. And in that stillness, she stepped closer, not all the way, but enough for her breath to graze the side of my neck when she reached past me for a dish towel hanging from the cupboard. My hand brushed hers when she pulled it down. Neither of us moved right away. She finally broke the contact, folding the towel, eyes lowered. But her voice betrayed her, soft and unsteady. "You should be careful, noticing things like that." I swallowed, unable to stop myself from answering, "Maybe I don't want to be careful." The words hung between us, reckless and impossible to take back. She looked up at me then, no mask, no practiced calm, and for a heartbeat, it felt like the room itself leaned closer, pulling us both into the same gravity. The floorboards upstairs creaked again. Louder this time. We both froze. Her hand still rested on the folded towel, mine close enough to touch. Then came the muffled slam of a dresser drawer, the rattle of my friend's laugh through his music. She stepped back quickly, as if she'd been burned, the towel slipping from her fingers. It hit the floor, and in the split second before she bent to grab it, our eyes locked. Something raw flickered there, fear, want, maybe both. I bent too, at the same time, and our hands collided over the soft fabric. She pulled back first, straightening too fast, brushing her hair away as though the gesture could erase what just happened. She started. But her phone buzzed on the counter, sharp against the thick silence. She glanced at the screen. A message lit up, "Ex-husband." Her thumb hovered over it, then she turned the phone face down without opening it. "Sorry," she murmured. But her voice cracked slightly, betraying more than she meant to. I wanted to say something, anything, but words failed. Instead, I stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the tension rolling off her. She didn't move away. "You don't have to explain," I whispered. Her breath caught. She tilted her chin, lips parting as if she wanted to answer, but the sound of footsteps thudded down the hall upstairs. She pressed a finger lightly against my chest, urging me back, her eyes wide. We waited, motionless, listening. The music upstairs resumed, the steps retreating. Her hand remained on my chest longer than it should have, trembling slightly. My heart pounded beneath her palm, and her eyes flicked there like she could feel every beat. "This is wrong," she whispered, barely audible. "Then why can't we stop?" The words escaped before I could stop them. Her lips curved into something pained, almost a smile. She shook her head, biting back a response. The silence after was heavier than anything she could have said. We stood inches apart. I could smell the faint trace of her perfume, warm and citrus-sweet, mingling with the faint laundry scent of her sweater. My hand lifted before I thought better of it, brushing the back of hers where it rested on the counter. She didn't move away. Her eyes lingered on my mouth, then darted up to meet mine. "Don't," she said softly, but she didn't step back. My breath caught. The space between us shrank, our foreheads nearly touching, her body angled toward mine like we were two halves pulled by the same current. Upstairs, a door opened. The sound made her jerk back half a step, but she couldn't quite leave. Instead, she gripped the edge of the counter, steadying herself, her voice low and unsteady. "You should go sit in the living room, before someone wonders." But her hand brushed mine one last time as she passed, deliberate this time, lingering just enough to make the leaving feel impossible that I couldn't focus on the television, on the muffled bass upstairs, on anything but the memory of her hand brushing mine as she slipped past. Every second stretched. I found myself studying the doorway, waiting for her shadow to reappear. When she finally did, it was slower, quieter. She stopped in the frame, her arms crossed as though she'd walked back in by accident. But her eyes betrayed her. "You didn't move," she said softly. "Did you want me to?" Her lips pressed together, no answer. She came closer instead, perching on the edge of the armchair across from me. The space between us was too small, too charged. I felt the pull like gravity. "This can't," she began, her voice tight, "it can't mean anything." "Then why are you here?" My voice was lower than I intended, rough with everything I hadn't said. Her eyes darted away, her fingers curling over the armrest. She looked suddenly younger, stripped of her practiced calm. "Because I keep thinking about it. And I hate that I do." The admission struck me harder than if she'd touched me. My breath caught, and I leaned forward before I knew it. "You think I don't?" Her head lifted sharply, eyes locking on mine. For a moment, we just stared, both of us teetering on something too steep to climb back from. I moved first, just enough to reach across, brushing a strand of hair from her face. My knuckles grazed her cheek, warm and soft. She closed her eyes for a heartbeat, leaning infinitesimally into the touch, and it nearly undid me. Her breath escaped slow, shaky. "You don't understand the risk." "I don't care." The words hung in the air, reckless and final. She opened her eyes, searching me as though waiting for me to take them back. I didn't. Instead, she leaned closer, her hand slipping to the back of the couch beside me. Our faces hovered inches apart, the heat of her body spilling into mine. I could feel the tremor in her breath, the faint brush of it against my lips when she whispered, "You should." "I can't." My reply came out like a confession, like surrender. The room seemed to shrink, the silence louder than anything I'd ever heard. Her fingers curled against the cushion, gripping hard, the only thing holding her back. My hand drifted to her wrist, light at first, then firmer when she didn't pull away. Her pulse thudded beneath my fingertips. She swallowed hard, her eyes dropping to my mouth again before flicking up, torn between resistance and something raw. "You're too young," she whispered, but her body angled closer, betraying her words. "You're too close," I whispered back. The distance between us dissolved to nothing. My nose brushed hers, the faintest contact, enough to ignite everything. Her lips parted, just as the front door latch clicked open. We jerked apart, breathless, wide-eyed, the sound of keys jingling and a voice calling into the house, "Mom." The sound of the door snapping shut jolted her upright. She smoothed her sweater in one sharp motion, eyes darting toward the hallway. My friend's voice carried through the house, something about forgetting his charger. We sprang apart, two guilty shadows. My pulse hammered in my throat. She pressed her palm to her chest, breath ragged, then forced composure onto her face like it was a mask she'd worn 1,000 times. "In here," she called, voice steady but a note too high. He padded through the hallway, head poking into the living room, phone in one hand, a crooked grin on his face. "Hey. Didn't think you'd still be here," he said to me. I mumbled something, but my focus was on her. She sat back on the armchair, legs crossed, posture immaculate, but her hands betrayed her, fingers lacing tight, white at the knuckles. "You okay, Mom?" he asked casually, stuffing his charger into his backpack. "Fine," she said too quickly. Then he laughed, tossing a glance between us. "You two looked serious. What, were you telling him embarrassing stories about me again?" She forced a smile. "Always." But when his eyes flicked away, she glanced at me, a look sharp and unguarded, one that said "Don't you dare speak." And then the twist landed. He bent to zip his bag and muttered under his breath, half joking, half needling, "Sometimes I think you like him more than me." The air split. My chest locked. She froze, lips parting like she'd been slapped. He straightened, brushing it off with a laugh, but the words hung there, heavier than he knew. He didn't see how she swallowed hard, how her shoulders stiffened. But I did. When he headed upstairs again to grab something else, silence crashed back over us. She turned to me instantly, eyes blazing, not with anger at him, but at me, at us, at this impossible pull we couldn't hide anymore. She stood, too fast, her hand brushing the table, sending a coaster spinning onto the floor. "You see?" she whispered, stepping in close, her breath sharp with panic. "He knows. He notices." I shook my head. "He doesn't," he was joking, her hand gripped my arm, hard. "Don't be naive. We're not invisible. We can't be." Her body was inches from mine, trembling with restraint, and it only made me want her more. "Then stop lingering," I whispered back. "Stop touching me if you don't mean to." Her grip faltered. Her eyes softened, though fear still shimmered beneath. "You think I don't mean it?" The question cracked something wide open. I moved closer, close enough to feel her breath catch, close enough that her forehead nearly touched mine. My hand hovered at her waist, not quite touching, the air electric with the choice we both knew was coming. "I think you're terrified you do," I said. For the first time, she didn't move back. Her fingers curled in my sleeve, holding on, silent but shaking with decision. Upstairs, his footsteps thundered again, but neither of us moved away. The weight of her hand on my sleeve felt like an anchor, holding me in place while the rest of the house threatened to cave in. Her son's footsteps upstairs, the faint buzz of his phone vibrating on a table, it all blurred into background noise. What remained was her, standing so close I could feel the heat radiating from her body. "We can't," she whispered. But her hand didn't let go. My chest tightened. "Then tell me to walk away." Her eyes flicked up to mine, desperate, searching, as though the words might come if she stared long enough. But they didn't. Her breath shivered out instead, slow and unsteady. I moved closer, not touching, but close enough that the air between us disappeared. She inhaled sharply, her shoulder brushing against me. Her perfume, citrus, faint vanilla, hit me in a wave, grounding and undoing me at the same time. "You're just," she started, voice breaking. She stopped, shook her head, tried again. "You're too young." I bent my head until my lips hovered at her ear. My voice was barely a sound. "Then why are you trembling?" Her body stiffened, then softened against me, like she'd been holding herself rigid for too long. My hand finally found her waist, tentative at first, then firmer when she didn't pull away. Her own hand, the one gripping my sleeve, slid higher until her fingers rested against my chest, feeling the thrum of my heartbeat. This is madness, she breathed. Then let's go mad together. It was reckless. It was raw. And it left no room to retreat. Her forehead pressed against mine. Her eyes closed, and for a long moment, neither of us moved, suspended on the edge of something that could ruin us or save us. My pulse thundered. Her lips parted, just enough that I could feel the warmth of her breath mingling with mine. And then, finally, her hand slipped to the back of my neck, pulling me closer. The kiss was slow at first, almost frightened, like we were testing the reality of it. Then it deepened, urgency breaking through years of restraint on her part, years of restless wanting on mine. It wasn't perfect, our teeth bumped, my hand gripped too tightly at her waist, but it was real. Human. Messy. When we finally pulled apart, gasping, her hand lingered on my face, thumb brushing my jaw as though to memorize me. Her eyes searched mine, wet and bright, and for the first time since the night began, she didn't look guarded. I don't know what happens after this, she whispered. Then we figure it out, I said. But at least now we know. A silence stretched, heavy, but not suffocating this time. Clearer. She leaned her forehead against mine again, breathing me in, and I understood without words, we'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. And neither of us wanted to. The house was quiet again, almost too quiet. The kind of silence that follows after something irreversible, where even the smallest sound feels louder than it should. We stayed close, our foreheads still touching, her hand warm against the side of my face. I could feel her breath slowing, sinking with mine, as if both of us were trying to steady the storm we just stepped into. Finally, she pulled back, just enough to see me, not enough to leave. Her eyes lingered on me with a tenderness that cut deeper than the kiss had. Vulnerable. Unmasked. You scare me, she whispered. I swallowed hard. Why? Because I told myself I was done feeling this way. Done needing anyone. Her thumb brushed along my jawline, gentle, trembling. And then you walk in, and suddenly I'm not so sure of anything anymore. I caught her hand, pressing it to my chest where my heart still thudded. Maybe you don't have to be sure. Not tonight. She let out a shaky laugh, half relief, half disbelief. You make it sound so simple. It feels simple when I'm with you, I said. For a long beat, she studied me like she was measuring those words, weighing their truth. Then, slowly, she nodded. Her shoulders dropped, the tension easing for the first time all evening. She leaned into me, resting her head against my shoulder. I wrapped an arm around her, tentative at first, then stronger when she let herself melt into me. The warmth of her body against mine, the way her hair brushed my cheek, it felt less like temptation now and more like something we'd both been aching for without admitting it. I don't know how we'll explain this, she murmured against my shirt. Maybe we don't have to yet, I said. Maybe it's just ours, for now. Her fingers threaded through mine, squeezing tight, like she needed proof I was real. Yours, she repeated, almost to herself. Then she tilted her face up, pressing a soft kiss to my forehead, so tender it nearly undid me more than the kiss before. I held her closer, closing my eyes, feeling the weight of every unspoken promise settle between us. Whatever came next, whatever risks, it didn't matter in that moment. She was in my arms, and for once, neither of us was pulling away. The front door rattled again upstairs, her son moving, the house reminding us of reality. But this time, we didn't flinch. We stayed as we were, wrapped in the fragile, impossible warmth of each other, knowing the choice had already been made. Speech Balloon, did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?